Hi students, welcome to session 2 of Wastewater Management. Students, in the previous session we studied about the introduction to wastewater management. We also discussed about sources of wastewater eutrophication and one case study which was of Gulf War oil spill. So students, among the sources of liquid waste discussed above or in the previous sessions, which do you think is in our direct control? Yes, it is the domestic wastewater. So now in today's session we will learn that where the domestic wastewater goes and how it is treated before releasing it into rivers, streams and other water bodies. So let us study about the domestic wastewater. Yes students, where does domestic wastewater go? Now students, each time we wash something or flush our toilets, water containing paper, cloth, detergent, soap, oil, grease, food scrap, feces, etc. These all goes down the drain, right? So this water gets accumulated and it forms the sewage. Now in large cities, this all is known as municipal wastewater. So obviously we need to treat it. So let us see that how the journey goes, how it makes the wastewater makes a way before flowing into the water body. Yes, and this can be best understood with the help of this topic, with our new topic, which is the sewer system. Now students, from people using water in kitchens and bathrooms in their homes and from commercial and industrial use, nearly half the state's population, over 2 million or 2 billion people in many communities, they release sewage to the treatment plant on some of the shores in some countries, and in other countries they have some other type of system. So nearly half of the total flow in the sewers is mainly from the weather street, tiny weather street runoff, and from below ground cracks and faulty connections that allow groundwater into the stream, right? So sewage actually travels through 3 different sets of pipes, and water that is used in the home or industry is flushed through a building's pipe until it reaches the long or the large sewers, which are owned and operated by city and town sewer departments. So these wastewater which pass through the local sewers transport the wastewater into many miles of the large sewers, and the intercept or the sewers ranging from some inches to some feet in diameter carry the regional wastewater to large treatment plants. And though most of the wastewater flows by gravity, some low-lying areas also require pumping. So in this way the sewer system actually works. So basically the sewer system, a channel of pipelines, it carries out the sewage from our houses, and the sewage leaves our houses through drain pipes and flows to the sewer mains of the city, right? And afterwards this waste flows easily through sewers due to a slight slope given to the drainage system. And then we know very well that most sewer pipes are underground, right? So if there is a leak or a blockage in any of these pipes, for this purpose manholes are built. What are built? Manholes. Now a manhole is a hole which is usually with a cover through which a person may enter sewer or drain to fix the faulty pipes, right? So the sewer mains flow into progressively larger pipes until they reach the wastewater treatment plant, right? And after that everything or all the processes take place in the wastewater treatment plant. So this was about the domestic wastewater, that where does it go, and about the sewer system. So now let's move on to another important topic, that is wastewater treatment plant. Yes, students, wastewater treatment plant. Students, a wastewater treatment plant is a facility that treats the wastewater from industrial sources, and there are basically three processes involved in treating wastewater. That is primary, secondary and tertiary. Primary, secondary and tertiary. So students, wastewater treatment is closely related to the standards and or expectations set for the effluent quality, and wastewater treatment processes are designed to achieve improvements in the quality of the wastewater. So the various treatment processes are the primary, secondary and tertiary processes. But before this, we will see, this is the diagrammatic representation of a process which shows that how wastewater treatment plant actually works. Now here you can see there is storage, this is drinking water treatment, this is overpressure station, and this is collecting station. Now this is very simple. Now first of all, there are suspended solids which are also called as physical particles that can clog the rivers or channels as they settle down under gravity. Then comes the biodegradable organics, which can serve as food for microorganisms in the receiving body, in the receiving water body, right? So microorganisms, they combine this matter with oxygen to form the water and to yield the energy they need to thrive and multiply. Unfortunately, this oxygen is also needed by fish and other organisms in the river too. So heavy organic pollution can lead to dead zones where no fish can be found, and sudden releases of heavy organic loads can lead to dramatic fish kills. So this should also be kept in mind. Even the pathogenic bacteria and other disease causing organisms are the most relevant one, where the receiving water is used for drinking or where people would otherwise be in close contact with this. And the nutrients, including nitrates and phosphates, these nutrients can also lead to high concentrations of unwanted algae, which can themselves become heavy loads of biodegradable organic load, right? So treatment processes may also neutralize or remove, they can remove industrial waste and toxic chemicals too. So this type of treatment should ideally take place at the industrial plant itself before discharge of their effluent in municipal sewers or water courses. So widely used terminology which refers to these three levels of wastewater treatment are primary, secondary and tertiary, which is the most advanced, right? So let us see which is the primary process. Yes, in primary process, what happens? Primary process is the actually mechanical treatment or the mechanical process which involves screening and settling of large particles. Now here you can see a picture, and this is a picture of vertical bars. Now in primary process, what happens, that primary or mechanical treatment or process is designed to remove gross, suspended and floating solids from raw sewage, and it includes the screening to trap these solid objects and sedimentation by gravity to remove suspended solids. So this level is sometimes referred to as mechanical treatment, although chemicals are often used to accelerate the sedimentation process. Sedimentation, do you remember, students? Sedimentation is the process where the solid particles or the heavy particles, they settle down at the bottom of the container or the beaker, right? So primary treatment can reduce the oxygen depletion level of the incoming wastewater by 20 to 30% and the total suspended solids by some 50 to 60%. So primary treatment is usually the first stage of wastewater treatment, and many advanced wastewater treatment plants in industrialized countries have started with primary treatment and have then added other treatment stages too, as wastewater load has grown, as the need for the treatment has increased, and the resources have also become available. So what happens in the vertical bars here? First, the sewage is passed through the screens of vertical bars to remove large impurities such as metal cans, plastic bags, cloth pieces, etc. And then this wastewater is then passed through a grit and sand removal tank called as grit chamber. So here the picture which you see is that of the grit chamber. Right? After the primary process comes the secondary process. So students, before discussing about secondary process, let us see what is more needed in the primary process. Yes, as we discussed about the primary process, that the wastewater is passed through a grit and the sand removal tank called the grit chamber. After that, the speed of the incoming wastewater is reduced so that sand, grit, pebbles, etc. they settle down, and the water is then passed through huge sedimentation tanks. Right? After that, here solid waste such as the feces is allowed to settle down, and the light floatable waste such as soaps, oils, then plastics and grease, they rise or they float. Right? So the material that settles at the bottom is referred to as sludge, and the material that rises at the top is known as scum. So remember both of these words, sludge and scum. The material that settles at the bottom in this primary process of wastewater treatment plant is known as sludge, and the material that rises to the top is known as scum. So the water that comes out of the sedimentation tanks after it is treated is called clarified water. Clarified water means it is now filtered, it is now clear, but it is not so clear. That is why secondary process is also carried on. So what is included in the secondary process? Yes, secondary process is the biological process in which the organic matter in the sludge is broken down with the help of bacteria, and this process in which sludge is broken down with the help of bacteria is called as digestion, and as a result of this process biogas is produced. So basically what is there in the secondary process is this, which is called as aeration tank. What it is called as? Yes, it is called as aeration tank. It's T. Right? So basically, in aeration tank or in secondary biological treatment, it removes the dissolved organic matter that escapes primary treatment, and this is achieved by microbes which are consuming the organic matter as food and converting it to carbon dioxide, water and energy, or their own growth and reproduction. So basically this biological process is then followed by additional settling tanks, which is also called as secondary sedimentation. Right? So here more of the suspended solids are removed, and about 85% of the suspended solids can be removed by a well-running plant with secondary treatment. So basically secondary treatment technologies include the base activated sludge process, where the variants of the pond and constructed wetland systems, tickling the filter and other forms of treatment which use biological activity, break down the organic matter, and in this way they also digest the sludge. As a result of this process biogas is produced. Right? So what happens that this biogas then can be used either as a fuel or to produce electricity, and the secondary treatment can be speeded up by allowing water to flow into large aeration tanks, which we saw in the figure above, where air is blown onto the sewage. And then if then also there are some suspended particles remained, then they are carried down onto the tertiary process. Now this tertiary process is basically a chemical process in which chemicals are used to remove phosphorus and nitrogen from the water. Now suspended particles have been totally eradicated. They are totally gone. Now what we are talking about is phosphorus and nitrogen, and that is why this tertiary process is important, right? So here addition of chlorine and exposure to ultraviolet light kills any of the remaining bacteria and disinfects the water, and then this water is discharged into the water bodies. So in this way we can say that tertiary treatment is simply the additional treatment beyond secondary treatment. Tertiary treatment can remove more than 99% of all the impurities from sewage, producing an effluent of almost drinking water quality. And so the related technology can be very expensive, requiring a high level of technical know-how and well-trained treatment plant operators, a steady energy supply, and chemicals and specific equipment which may not be very readily available. So an example of a typical tertiary treatment process is the modification of a conventional secondary treatment plant to remove additional phosphorus and nitrogen. So here you can see the wastewater treatment flow chart in which they have shown all the processes, including from the primary to tertiary process, right? So basically in tertiary process, disinfection typically with chlorine can be the final step before discharge on the effluent. However, some environmental authorities are concerned that chlorine residuals in the effluent can be a problem in their own right, and that is why they have moved away from this process. So disinfection is basically, it is frequently built into this treatment plant design, but it is not effectively practiced because of the high cost of chlorine or the reduced effectiveness or of the ultraviolet radiation, where the water is not sufficiently clear or free of particles, and that is why primary and secondary processes are of more use than the tertiary process, right? So from influent it is passed on to the bar screen, then grit removal, then extended aeration basins. After that they are passed on to secondary clarifier, where they are filtered, and then passing through the UV disinfection, nitrogen and phosphorus are removed, and also by the UV rays the bacteria will be killed, and reclamation, they can be passed on to reclamation ponds. And one more thing, from extended aeration basins they can also be passed on to solids dewatering, where the solids disposal would be done, right? So the suspended particles, they are disposed of. So in this way wastewater treatment plant runs, right? I hope you are clear with the wastewater treatment plant, right? So students, now let us move on to our another important topic, and that is that what happens to the treated water and what happens to the sludge. So let us discuss about it. Yes students, what happens to the treated water after we have studied the wastewater treatment, in which all the three processes we have discussed, right? So the treated water which is released, then it is released to the water bodies such as the streams and rivers and ponds and lakes, and this water can be used again for a number of purposes, such as supplying drinking water, fertilizers for growing crops, and also for aquaculture. So this is the benefit, this is the advantage of treating the water through the wastewater treatment plant. After that, we also saw in the flow chart that some of the solid particles, they are disposed of, right? So what happens to the sludge which is remained? Yes, we know that sludge contains, or it consists of, the human feces. These are the solid particles, and other organic matter too. So it also has large amounts of water, and it needs to be thickened so that it can be easily transported and used as compost in farmlands. So there are 3 methods to do so, right? And these 3 methods are possible by incineration. What do we call? Incineration. Right, students? So students, first you can see here there is a picture in which it is shown that sludge may be incinerated, that is, it is burnt into ashes in such factories and in such industry or factory, and the ash is used as soil conditioner or as a construction material. After this, dewatering is done through such equipment where sludge may be dewatered and then combined with other ingredients to make fertilizers. So this is, what is this? It is a dewatering equipment. After that comes the third process, which is the sludge composting system, right? So here solid composting is done, where the sludge may be composted or processed to produce gases that can be used as a fuel. So in this way, these methods of sludge disposal take place. Now, since cleaning wastewater requires great effort, it is time consuming and costly, and so one must strive to avoid discharging pollutants into the water bodies. So next time you go for shopping, carry your own bag and do not accept things in plastic bags. And moreover, try to choose items that contain the least amount of packaging, because these treatment plants are actually very expensive, and treating such a huge amount of pollutant in the water is not so easy, right? So we are through with the session 2. In the next session, we will discuss about the control of sewage generation, right? What we should do to control sewage generation, and also the alternative methods of sewage disposal. I hope you liked today's session. So see you in the next session. Till then, keep learning, keep enjoying, and have a nice time.